3, 2, 1.
Day breaks, mind aches. I'll be running when my feet hit the ground.
Welcome to From One Mom to Another with Cindy Anderson.
I subscribe to the belief that women need women.
As a mother of 7, she is versed in all aspects of the triumphs, joys, and challenges of parenting.
Tap into your own strengths and trust that you are the best mother your children ever had.
And
Give yourself some credit.
take some time to breathe.
You are doing better than you think.
Now here's Cindy.
You are all doing better than you think. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of From One Mom to Another. I am really excited about today's show. The topic is, Hey Mom, what's for dinner? And as usual, my daughter Stephanie Taylor is here with us. And I am really happy to welcome my daughter-in-law, Natalie Anderson, who is joining in the discussion.
Glad to be here.
Natalie is married to my son, Daniel. They have 4 beautiful children and are the new owners of a collie named Link. For those who have read my book, One Mom to Another, the picture of the sweet mom and her children on the cover is Natalie and her children. This is going to be, I think, a very fun and productive discussion, so let's go ahead and get started. There's a quote that I like by C.S. Lewis, and he says, "The sun looks down on nothing half so good as a household laughing together over a meal." And whenever I read that quote, I just picture this family sitting, Norman Rockwell style, sitting around a table, everybody passing the food politely, all knowing what direction right to pass it, just having wonderful conversation, nobody interrupting anybody. I mean, it's just this ideal setting, right? But in reality, a meal doesn't look like that, right? Like food is being passed, like, which way do we pass it? And it's going across the table, to the left, to the right. If you have a large family, the kids just know when you get a plate of something, you just take what you want. So sometimes the food doesn't even make it around the table.
Well, not only do you take what you want, but you keep it by you so that you don't actually have to share it with anybody else.
Right.
Fight for what you want. There's no handing it to the next person.
That's right. So I think we're going to kind of talk about ideal versus reality a little bit. The worst time of a Mother's Day is when we hear the question, "Mom, what's for dinner?" Natalie, Stephanie, thoughts?
I quite literally 2 days ago banned that question from my home. I was getting it at noon, before we even had lunch. I was being asked what's for dinner, and I decided I could not deal with the whining and the complaining at 1 p.m. when dinner was 5 or 6.
Well, do you feel like COVID and quarantine has kind of exacerbated that problem of what's for the next meal? What's for lunch? What's for dinner? Because we're kind of low on activities and we're not as busy as we used to be. So do you feel like you're getting that question more often and earlier every single day?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, we're their short order cooks, and they're like, this is actually pretty great. Mom basically lives in the kitchen. The minute she cleans up one meal, she's making the next one.
Order up.
Yeah, it's the excitement of their day, right? What's for dinner? And if I could just order food, or I just show up at a table and food's there, I would be really excited about it too, or really not excited about it. When I'm going behind there, sweating and sautéing things for an hour to be no thanks,
What is your what was your kid's reaction when you said no more asking for what's for dinner?
Okay, but what's for dinner?
Right. A slew of things. I think confusion was the main thing. They're like, but then how do I know what's for dinner?
Right.
Ask.
But what is really for dinner? Yeah.
But what?
But seriously, what are we going to eat for dinner?
It's just rude. You show up and you say thanks, Mom, and that's all you can say. That was the way it was said.
That's right. You sit up to the table and you eat it. I banned it as well. The kids would ask me what's for dinner, and I would just say food.
Because what your kids don't understand is that might be the first time they're asking you what's for dinner. But if you have more than one child, you're getting that question 2, 3, 4, 5 plus times every few hours by the same, the same day.
And if they would just be excited, when I said hot dogs, if they would be like, yay, that's what I woke up hoping we would have that for dinner They never say that.
Exactly. It's not the question that's the hard. It's what comes after the answer is given that I'm not emotionally ready for at 1 p.m.
Right.
Yeah, I made that mistake. You would think this many years into the game, I would have had a few things figured out. But one of my quarantine projects was to buy this little chalkboard with the days of the week on there so that I could put what was for dinner each of those days. And I thought, well, this will solve all the what's for dinner problems. But I forgot that really key component is it's the whining that comes. It doesn't matter how they learn what's for dinner.
Right.
It's
And let me tell you something else. Steph, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember? But on the refrigerator, I always put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I would list the meals.
Yeah.
So you would look at that. Not you, Stephanie, because you would never complain about dinner. But I mean, not you. But the other children, yeah, they see it and they would complain about it. Or if I changed my mind, like if I didn't have what was on that list.
Because it looks like blue ink, but really to them, it's like written in blood, like a blood oath taken that, Getty is on Tuesday.
Right. You're just never going to get out of that question alive. You just really aren't.
Well, I really have, when my oldest asks, he is usually pretty pleasantly, like, oh, okay, great. That sounds great. When he first came along, he would eat curry. He would eat hummus. He was eating baba ganoush, and I was on my high horse. I was like, all these moms that complain about these kids, you give them a hard time. Like my first kid's favorite meal is salad. So I'm just winning at motherhood, and everyone needs to do what I'm going to do what I'm doing because it's just working. And then I had my daughter who's now 7 and she's in the 20th percentile. And her regular question is, Mom, is there dessert? And if I say no, she pushes the plate away from her and says, I'll wait till breakfast.
Oh, my goodness.
And go to bed hungry. And what do I do? Because other times I'm like, yes, there's dessert. You need to eat your vegetables if you want dessert, So then she's like, okay, she'll begrudgingly eat whatever it is I'm serving her. Otherwise, it's nope, not worth it. I'm like, crap, I'm not the best mom ever, it turns out.
look at the top of that horse like, it was fun. It all lasted.
On my face. But so far in my mouth. I'm sorry to every mother in the world. Because no, she's definitely not.
And it's a game, that dinner bluffing game is a game they know they kind of just ultimately win because they know that our instinct is to keep them alive. Right. And so they have almost all the bargaining cards in their hand, right? Like you can't starve me. So too many nights of not making something that I like isn't going to work. Like you have to feed me at
get the sustenance I need.
Right.
So too many nights in a row.
No dessert tonight. That's fine. But I know I go cave soon.
Pancakes are going to roll around here pretty quick. You can't be sauteing every night, Mom.
I know your rotation. I know your rotation.
Chicken nuggets are right around the corner. I just know it. I'm holding out.
Well, that was Eric. Eric was such a picky eater. If it was hamburgers, pizza, or hot dogs, he was all in. Otherwise, he had no use for it. And he just figured out tomorrow's Wednesday. I guess we're getting hot dogs.
And I think also too, the thing about dinner is that it has to happen every single night. And I feel like that's a really overlooked component of why moms hate making dinner so much. I actually really love to cook. In and of itself, I think it's wonderful. And I started off my young mom years being so excited to try things and after a while, the complaining and the whining just kind of beats you down to the point where you don't really enjoy it anymore. Especially when you realize they were just as happy with Ritz crackers and a banana for dinner as they were this beautiful, 3-course meal you just, slaved over. And you're like, why am I doing this?
Why? Exactly. Which brings us to our second topic, kind of balancing variety with ease. I used to watch cooking shows, and then I would try what they did, and I'd be so excited because it was going to be this great, awesome meal. It was going to turn out perfectly because it turned out perfectly on the show, and I followed all the directions, but they usually didn't turn out. And one night I had made something and nobody liked it. I didn't like it. Rich didn't like it. And Rich, my husband, will eat anything and is so kind about anything. So, that had to really turn out badly. I said, I told him, I said, I watched the show. I wrote down all the ingredients. I don't know what happened. And Rich said, you keep watching those cooking shows. He said, stop watching them. Like, we're happy with whatever you cook. You don't have to make these gourmet meals.
Right. Well, and like I said, I really enjoy cooking, but I think, like you always say, like, motherhood's a long game, but I also feel like dinner is the long game. Like, because I don't think you appreciate when your kids are young just how many more dinners you have ahead of you to make for these children. So I say pace yourself. If you enjoy cooking, you enjoy trying new things, throw in a couple fun, new, creative meals during the week, but have some basics, have some go-tos so that you don't burn yourself out, or, your kids don't fight every single meal. Or
Well, and I feel like I made it to Michael. Michael's my 7th child. And so, with your oldest, they're 18 years and then they go to college or whatever, they move out, but you're still making meals.
Yeah.
So by the time Michael was a senior in high school, I was going on my 30th year.
Oh my goodness.
And I kind of just quit.
Oh my goodness.
Like,
I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't think I'm going to make it that far.
It's okay if you don't. Michael's okay.
I'm at year 9, and I'm like, Daniel and I both kind of comment to each other at like 4:35. We say the specter of dinner is upon us. And it's upon us every night. It comes every night without fail. And some nights I'm ready for it, right? And I'm making all these fancy meals. And other nights I'm like digging through the freezer, or I'm saying it's cold cereal.
Yeah. So Natalie, on your social media, you've posted, off and on with like Finn learning how to make different things. Yeah. And I feel like you're playing this long game then really smart, because I feel like if you can get your kids to start cooking or taking an active interest in what you do in the kitchen, it pays off in spades. So as I'm sitting here also talking about, being tired of making dinners, I do need to say that I've got 3 teenagers who are excellent in the kitchen.
Oh, that's awesome.
That I can't do it often because 2 of them work, but when I just really cannot bring myself to do it, I can say to the girls, you're up. And then it is kind of like dinner gets called and you're like, you show up to the table and this meal is on the table and it's kind of magic. Like, oh, well,
best moment ever. I mean, I got a small piece of that. Like when Finn made his first set of brownies or cookies from start to finish, I was out of the kitchen. I showed up and there were warm, delicious cookies on the counter. I was like, and this is why I had children. Like this is it. Like this just happened. So for dinner to be that way, I will be so excited. That's a great.
And I think that's a great takeaway, to involve your kids in cooking and in the meal preparation.
I think a lot of it too is giving yourself permission to not always have a great meal on the table. Mm-hmm. Embrace those nights where you have cereal. Embrace the pancakes out of the box. The kind where you just like add the water, to make a pancake. Or and
kids don't like some kids do. I shouldn't say kids, all kids, but the frou-frou doesn't really impress them. They just like foods that they know what they are. They know what's in them. They don't like food they're not sure if they're going to like.
Totally. Right. Daniel had his way, and I'm sure my kids are right on board with him, that if we would have 7 meals a week, 1 meal every night for the rest of forever. Like Monday would be spaghetti night. Friday would be pizza Friday. Yeah. Every week. And it's me who comes in and ruins it, because I'm like, well, you can't possibly want pizza again. You're like, what's the matter with you, Mom? Of course we would. And I come in, I'm like, no, you want ratatouille and you want all these crazy things. And they're like, no, we don't. So I do. I like stuff. I like your advice of easing into it, because I think there's a good balance. I do think exposing kids to new foods, new tastes is a great thing. One of my favorite pieces of advice in terms of eating, picky eaters, teaching kids how to, expand their horizon, was my pediatrician said, if you zoom in on a toddler's diet, in one day, it looks very unbalanced. You know, one day a toddler will eat only bananas and want nothing to do with meat or veggies. And then the next day they'll hate bananas and they'll want all the chicken. And you're super confused, and it frustrates moms, or even sometimes weeks. And she says if you zoom all the way out into like the month view, they are getting exactly what they need. They crave and they seek after the things that their body needs. If they want green beans, one day they'll just eat so many green beans. And so she's like, her advice was keep their plate full of a variety of foods, and don't force them to eat food. Don't get mad at them. Keep this positive atmosphere and always offer, even if they gag and spit out broccoli. Put the broccoli on the plate, you know. And I, to this day, like, I have, you know, almost 2-year-old, and we put salad on his plate with everyone else, even though I know he's not going to touch the salad, but there it sits, you know. And occasionally I'll kind of see him maybe put it in his mouth or play with it, you know. And that alone is exposure. And I think the more children are exposed to unique foods and unique tasting foods, the more they're like, oh, like, that's not going to kill me, or maybe I do like things that are green, or, you know.
Well, they watch the survival rate of their siblings. They're like, okay, 4 of my other siblings ate this with 100% survival rate over time, so this must be okay.
Maybe I'll venture a bite. One thing I did that my kids tended to like, it came out of frustration, but then it turned into one of the most genius things I've ever done. And we call it make it your own night. There was one night I was just tired, and I had started thinking about dinner late. And one of my kids came up to me and said, "What's for dinner?" And I thought, not again, not again.
Not another day.
Not another day. And I just said, you know what? It's make it your own. And they're like, what? Like, make it your own. Whatever you can make, and then, you know, clean up afterwards, you can have. And they're like, and this also proves the point. They're like, can we have cereal? Like, that was on the top of their list. Was cereal. Yes, you can have cereal. Anyway, they're running around the house, shouting it out. And so on Friday nights just became make it your own.
I remember when you first announced it, and we all kind of went into the kitchen and opened the fridge and kind of tentatively looked at each other like, that was okay. Like, reaching in to grab something, like, waiting for you to be like,
Being tricked.
Right. Like, yeah, it was great. Like, who wouldn't want bagels for breakfast, you know, for dinner?
That's when you kids are like snickering, like, what? Mom's not understanding what she's doing, and then mom's snickering in the corner and be like, I just got out of making dinner.
That is a win-win.
Pouring chocolate chips onto my bagel. Okay.
Hey, as long as you cleaned it up, that was great.
Yes. So good.
So I think the takeaways from this segment really are, we don't have to do the gourmet dinners every single night. We don't have to put that kind of pressure on ourselves. Our kids don't expect it. On the other hand, you know, there might be times to expose them to new foods, teach them the skills to be able to help in the kitchen, share that responsibility a little bit. But as always, you know, simplify. You know, things don't have to be complicated. We don't need 5 pans cooking on the stove at one time in order to put dinner together. And also, if you enjoy having 5 pans on the stove, that's also fine as well. And I think that's the point. We do what we're comfortable with, and we do, you know, what works for our families.
I like that. I think to agree, like being at peace with yourself when some days it feels natural to make something new. And I feel like making something new tonight. And some nights it will be cold cereal. It will be frozen food, chicken nuggets, and whatever. And being at peace with yourself that this is okay for right now, because that's where you're at, and your kids love you, and that and you're feeding them, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Tomorrow is another day, and the specter dinner will be upon you tomorrow.
Being comfortable with who you are, and not putting undue pressure on yourself. You know, I am an empty nester now, and my kids, when they would come back to visit, when that first started happening, I was always really surprised when they would come through the door. And now, instead of, hey, Mom, what's for dinner? It would be, hey, Mom, can you fix your fajitas? Or, hey, Mom, can you fix your spaghetti? Or whatever it was that they wanted to eat that I used to fix. And I would just be flabbergasted. I just thought, you want me to fix the very meals that you complained and whined about? Like,
Well, starving makes the heart grow fonder for
That's right. And then I started to realize that it's not the food. It's not my fajitas and it's not my spaghetti, although I do make a pretty mean fajita. I'm just going to throw that in there. They were wanting to relive memories and feelings. And I think that that there are some benefits of sitting down together as a family and eating this food. And I know it's crazy and I know it's stressful and I know all of that. But I found, looking back, that there was some real deep memories that were embedded in my children, as crazy and chaotic as that time was for me, that are amazing.
Absolutely. I think that memory is a funny thing. I think that as moms, we can look back and we can maybe see how crazy that one night was and see all kind of the flaws, or maybe I raised my voice. And you know, early on when you shared that quote by C.S. Lewis, I really liked that because I look back at my family dinners and I kind of picture like us quite like passing in the right direction and making happy comments to each other. And I know for a fact that's not the way it is, but for some reason that's how it is in my brain. So we can hope that we're creating these maybe how falsified or, you know, whatever it is in their brains down the road.
Well, feelings.
And feelings. Right. Exactly.
Right. You know, and like you were saying, mom, dinner time is kind of hard because everyone's so busy that, you know, sometimes you don't always have all of your family home at the time that dinner's ready. And so I kind of decided a long time ago that I wanted to make the most of the dinners that we were all home for. So we got this game. I think it's just called Dinner Games. I can't even remember who makes it. But anyways, it's all these little cards, and you just draw one card, and it has a suggestion for a game or like a way to talk about, you know, past memories or kind of getting to know you type things. And I feel like that's kind of helped take our sitting down together to kind of another deeper level. One night we kind of borrowed a scene from Notting Hill where they had to compete over dessert, like who had like the most like tragic story. And there was one day that, you know, we were all just having a rough day and my kids were grumpy and I was grumpy and we were begrudgingly sitting down. And I just had that thought, let's do it. Let's fight over the last, I think it was a brownie, over who had like the worst thing happen to him today. And it was hilarious. And by the end of it, we were all laughing. And I don't know, we wouldn't have had that had we not made the effort to like sit down at the table. Even we were grumpy and had lots of reasons to not do it, to be at the table together, sharing a meal of sorts.
And isn't it interesting that something that is one of the most frustrating things that mothers deal with, you know, feeding kids 3 times a day and a couple snacks, ends up being one of the biggest memory makers and benefits, you know, in your family.
Definitely. I love that. I think it's perfect. I think food, you know, as a culture and has a unifying effect. And if you think back to, you know, even from the beginning of time, big events usually have kind of some kind of food or tradition surrounding food with it, because those warm, happy feelings can be created, you know, around sharing food, and it gives life. And it's, you know, so as sometimes repetitive as it feels, taking that opportunity to kind of bond with your family. And today actually was my son's 4th birthday, and every birthday we go around the table at dinner and we each take a turn sharing what we love about that one person. And
really cute.
You know, even in a kind of some crazy household, my 4-year-old sometimes gets lost in the chaos because he's just kind of a go with the flow kid. So to have every person look him in the face and give him a compliment meant a lot to him. And I think it just sometimes it slows us down and it makes us look at each other in our, you know, in each other's eyes and share experiences. And I think this is a great opportunity too to like discuss some problems even in, you know, that maybe someone is having at school or with friends, and then siblings can help and they can give advice and they can talk through problems together. And I think it's a great reminder that we're like a unit and we're on the same team. I like to remind my kids sometimes, like, you're on the same team. You know, you're
Right.
fighting, but you're on the same team. The world is crazy and people can be mean. You know, let's try to be on the same team. And I think dinner time is a great time to renew that bond and be like, you know, this is a little bit of a tangent, but even growing up in high school, you know, we would have team dinners. Like before games, we would get together and we'd share a meal together, and it was bonding. And there's something to be said about that, and the power it can have in a family and in a home, especially if you're doing that as often as you can.
Yeah, I so agree with that. And I think some of our best conversations with our children have been over a meal. And often those conversations stretched long past meal time. The food was gone, but we were still sitting up at the table, you know, just talking. And I think it's, to your point, I think that's really an amazing benefit that comes from it. And yes, a very, very big bonding time.
I even remember, you know, if you or Dad wanted to talk to us about something, even, you know, if it was a little bit harder, or you wanted it to have, you know, a special feel to it, we would go out to dinner. Or if it was late at night, Dad would pull out ice cream, you know, just that.
Right.
There's that it's an anthropology term called commensality. It's the good feelings shared and felt, you know, when sharing food with each other. And I think that's kind of a backbone of family life is opportunities, whether it's nightly dinners or birthdays or however your family can make it work is really essential.
So at the end of this, are we saying that the hassle is worth it?
Oh yeah.
In the long game, maybe not in the micro, maybe not the micro picture, but in the macro.
At 10 o'clock at night when my kids are sleeping and peaceful and sweet and the kitchen's clean and the oatmeal's over. Oh yeah. Ask me at
Totally
like 5:30 with sweat running down my face and kids crying at me that they hate whatever I've spent an hour making. I don't know. But right now, yeah. Oh yeah.
Right now. So true. But I promise you that there will be a day in the future when your children come back home for a visit and will start asking you for all those meals you made that they told you they didn't like. Hang in there. Dinner and food prep is always a challenge to find the balance of what works and what doesn't, but it is also a wonderful way to foster family memories, spawn some great discussions, and take some time as a family to remind each other, as Natalie so well put, that you are all on the same team. Thank you so much to Stephanie and Natalie for this great discussion. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and encourage you to listen not only to this one, but to others, both on my website, onemomtoanother.com. You can then just click the podcast tab, or you can go directly to webtalkradio.net. And remember, you are doing better than you think.
I need some home.